Welcome to an evening none of us have been waiting for. Alright, so I just want to start off with, I went through the Congress introduced, the bills introduced in Congress, and I only pulled out 3 that I thought were actually, like, of some relevance or interest, right? The rest of them are just all, like, things you would expect Congress to be doing these days. And I'm not saying that these aren't things that you would expect Congress to be doing. It's just that these are the most interesting things, in my opinion, to find Congress to be doing. Alright, so first up we have H.R. 2027, called the Minority Serving Institutions STEM Achievement Act. That's what MSI stands for. This was introduced by Representative Eddie Bernice Johnson from Texas, and that's a Democrat. Just because they're from Texas doesn't make them a Republican, just remember that. Now, what is this about? To direct federal science agencies and the Office of Science and Technology Policy to undertake activities to improve the quality of undergraduate STEM education and enhance the research capacity at the nation's HBCUs, TCUs, and MSIs, and for other purposes. Okay, well, I think the important thing to note is what the hell is a HBCU, TCU, and MSI? Well, we come down here to the definitions, right? And they don't tell us in here, but, I guess I should have looked it up. Right, let me just get this so everybody kind of sees what HBCU. Historically black colleges and universities. Okay, that's what that is. Right, they don't say it here. What they say in here is it has the meaning given the term Part B institution. Maybe that means Part Black institution, which would be so fucking racist. In Section 322 of the Higher Education Act of 1965. Right. Now, what are the rest of these things? Well, MSI is a minority serving institution. The term minority serving institution, or MSI, means Hispanic serving institutions. Alaska Native serving institutions, Native Hawaiian serving institutions, and predominantly black institutions, Asian American and Native American Pacific Islander serving institutions, and Native American serving non-tribal institutions, as defined in there. The term TCU has the meaning given the term tribal college or university. So, just non-white places, just non-white universities and colleges, okay? Just non-white ones, alright? Which, okay. Now let's see here. Findings. Let's take a look at these findings. Maybe they're interesting. Evidence suggests that the supply of STEM workers is not keeping pace with the rapidly evolving needs of the public and private sector. Oh my gosh. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the United States will need 1 million additional STEM professionals. I'm not sure how practical that is, but whatever. I'm not sure how they come up with that idea, but it's the government. Just take that. STEM occupations offer higher wages, more opportunities for advancements, and higher degree of job security than non-STEM occupations. Okay. Composition of the STEM workforce does not reflect the current or projected diversity of the nation, with Hispanics, African Americans, and other racial and ethnic minorities significantly underrepresented in the STEM workforce compared to their presence in the workforce more generally. You know who else is underrepresented in the STEM workforce? Well, let's take a look. Population of the U.S. as of 2017, white people, 73%. If 73% of America is white, then you would expect 73% or more of the STEM occupation to be held by white people, right? Well, turns out it's only 67%. So it turns out everybody is underrepresented in the STEM workforce. So, but let's go back and listen to their complaints about everyone who's not white. Let's just take a look at that. All right. A stronger national commitment to increasing the diversity of the STEM workforce is needed to help address the STEM skills shortage. I mean, they should be promoting STEM either way. All right, I think everybody should get in it. I think, if you're going to college and you're studying something that's not all that hard, then you're not really doing yourself a service, right? Like, for instance, I went and I don't know why I did this, but I studied nuclear engineering. I spent 4.5 years trying to pass these classes, and I got like half the credits. But I was dying. I was dying, just like mentally, physically. I was not doing well over in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'll tell you, the people there are insane, right? Like insane. Okay, like, and it's super violent over there. Crime is everywhere, and well, you wouldn't be surprised. It's a mostly Democrat area. People are nuts. Anyway, people are getting shot, police shooting people, and that got nothing to do with race either. Just a white homeless man living on the mountains. Well, you're not supposed to be on the Sandias, sir. He, pulled out a butter knife, and these 10 cops with AR-15s just unloaded into him, and it was just like, okay, right. Well, that's New Mexico for you, right? Welcome to New Mexico. Beautiful land, beautiful scenery, all that. But the people are insane and the police are nuts, right? They hand out tons of DUIs and they only end up pursuing half of them, right? That's what we're talking about over there. Anyway, according to the National Academies of Sciences, entitled Minority Serving Institutions, America's Underutilized Resource for Strengthening the STEM Force. 2- and 4-year minority-serving institutions enroll nearly 30% of all undergraduate students, a percentage that is expected to grow in the coming years in the United States higher education system and play a critical role in providing important pathways to STEM-related education, training, and careers for students of color. Historically black community universities, colleges and universities, tribal colleges and universities, and minority-serving institutions are highly successful at educating minorities in the STEM fields. I mean, because they're not going to be educating white people, right? Of course they're going to be, any education institution ought to be successful at educating the people that are going there, and can serve as best practice models for other colleges and universities to further expand participation of underrepresented minorities in the STEM workforce. Increased investment in the STEM infrastructure at historically black, tribal, and minority serving has the potential to increase these institutions' ability to educate even more students in the STEM disciplines. Yeah, it also has the ability to increase prices and costs, because you have to remember, nobody goes to school for free unless you have scholarships and stuff like that, and even then it's not really free, right? There's something you're going to be paying for at some point in time, right? Scholarships are good. They're great, but, giving universities money to educate people hasn't really ended up with anything good except for a ton of student debt in the United States, because, they give these federal money to these universities. They don't lower costs for people, right? I mean, I guess it's different in University of New Mexico. The average cost of tuition, like per semester, for a person living in New Mexico, like a resident of New Mexico, was like $3,000, right? Whereas for somebody who was out of state studying there, your tuition was more like $15,000 a semester, right? So they're gonna, while they're probably forced to make costs low for the people who live there, they're gonna jack it up for everybody else, right? And so that's what I ended up doing. Yeah, lots of student debt. Very nice. Thanks a lot. And honestly, if I had my way, I wouldn't have gone at all. I would have pursued a business degree in Houston. But, how parents can be. Anyway, increased investment in with the demand for that exceeding the supply, which, I'm not sure about that because it's the government coming up with stats, and I don't trust the government's stats when they're projecting stats. If they're, taking stats from the past and presenting it, I'll trust that. But if they're, projecting stats in the future, I'm like, And you got to remember, just trying to artificially inflate the STEM workforce is not a good thing, right? Just giving out degrees to people who haven't quite earned the degrees is going to be a problem for, our science and tech fields. You're going to have people who, aren't qualified in these areas. And I'm not talking about any kind of race. I'm talking about every race, right? Just every single one. If the people are not qualified, then they shouldn't be in the field. If they haven't, proved themselves. But, I'm all for investing in institutions, educational institutions, and promoting the STEM fields. I'm all for it. I think it's a great thing. I just find it funny how they're, constantly talking about, underrepresented minorities in the workforce, underrepresented. Yeah, well, so are white people. Everybody's underrepresented in the STEM field, so I don't know what the hell you're going to do to fix that, okay? I have no idea what you're going to do. I mean, they come down here, they say white there, 2 or more, I guess 2 or more is still like 61, So there's a very, very low population of pure white people, right? Most of them are mixed. It's just like, okay. But, underrepresented, still underrepresented. I mean, according to numbers, right? I mean, 11% black. Go down here to black. Where's black? Sorry. Right. 12.7%. Right? So they're actually closer to being equally represented in the STEM field than white people are. But, don't pay attention to any of that stuff. Don't worry about it. I just find that too funny. But anyway, their whole idea here is to, there's lots of studies, research and capacity building. They're asking, to do basically just, they want universities to make proposals for these grants to promote this thing, and they're going to promote it, and it's whatever. But what they want to spend on this is $170 million for the fiscal year 2022, $175 million for fiscal year 2023, $180 million for fiscal year 2024, $185 million for fiscal year 2025, and $190 million for fiscal year 2026 to carry out this section. I mean, I'm not sure where they're going to get the money from to do this, seeing how, the United States is in a huge amount of debt and inflation seems to be a problem at this point, and they already want to pass another infrastructure bill that's going to cost another, trillion. We'll see if we even have a country. we have an economy, by the time they want to do this. But, I'm all for the investments, right? But these investments are, grants into this section may fund the establishment of no more than 5 minority-serving institution centers of innovation to leverage successes of historically black colleges and universities, tribal colleges and universities, and minority-serving institutions, the STEM education and research training of underrepresented minority students as models for other institutions, including both HBCUs, TCUs, MSIs, and institutions of higher education that are not those. Such centers will be located on campuses of selected institutions, so they're going to pick these places out, and they're only going to pick a select few, right? And they're only going to give this money to those people to do this stuff, right? Once again, I'm all for the investment, but you can go ahead and shelve the bullshit about people being underrepresented, because in STEM, everybody is underrepresented. So you can shove the bullshit. You can shelve the bullshit about it being racist and shit. You can go ahead and shelve that. The rest of this is kind of like the same thing, except it's just like setting policies, having studies done, reports sent to the government, identifying which programs work best, that kind of stuff. It's just a bunch of stuff that's really not important. It just isn't. But anyway, I think it's nice and funny to see the Democrats pushing the idea that minorities and everybody else is underrepresented except for whites. They don't seem to want to mention that part about it. But whatever, let them do them. Everybody's underrepresented in the STEM workforce. It just is. All right, it's a hard field. It's a very hard field. And so, you can't really just expect things to be, nice and clean cut, it's not some cookie cutter shit. It's some hard stuff that, you really got to work on, That's, dude, it's so messed up. I remember I had one test where, usually I didn't study. Usually I didn't really study that much, just because it seemed to work kind of best for me. I would do homework and stuff like that. But one time I decided, I'm going to spend, and I don't usually do this, I usually study the night before, or 2 nights before, right? I'm not the best student. And, but this time I was like, I'm going to spend a week before this test studying for it. And I felt very confident in my abilities because I studied that week, a whole week for this one test. And I failed it. And I was so upset. I was just like, I did worse on this test than on the other tests, and I studied more for this one. So it was literally like, it's tough. I'm not saying I'm a smart guy. All I know is that it's hard. Okay, it ain't easy. Okay, it's just not. Calculus 3 is going to be something everybody's going to have to pass in order to get one of these degrees, and in order to get one of these degrees, and not everybody's gonna be able to pass it. All right, you're gonna be putting people like, you gotta represent your race, man. like, pressure, dude. Like, as if they need more pressure. All right, let's throw race on top of it. Why aren't you representing, bro? Anyway, on to the next one. This is HR 2655. Actions. Representative James A. Himes, Democrat out of Connecticut. So, you already have an idea of where this is going. To amend the Securities Exchange Act of 1934 to prohibit certain securities trading and related communications by those who possess material non-public information. So they want to restrict insider trading. So I'm like, okay, that sounds nice. Right? Be enacted in general. This is amended to add Section 16A, prohibition on insider trading. Prohibition against trading securities while aware of material, non-public information. It shall be unlawful for any person, directly or indirectly, to purchase, sell, or enter into, or cause the purchase or sale of, or entry into, any security, security-based swap, or security-based swap agreement, while aware of material, non-public information relating to such security, security-based swap, or security-based swap agreement, or any non-public information from whatever source that has or would reasonably be expected to have a material effect on the market price of any such security, security-based swap, or security-based swap agreement. If such person knows or recklessly disregards that such information has been obtained wrongfully, or that such purchase or sale would constitute a wrongful use of such information. Right, okay, nice. I'm on board. I'm all for it. However... E. Affirmative defenses. The Commission may, by rule or by order, exempt any person, security, or transaction, or any class of persons, securities, or transactions from any or all of the provisions in this section upon such terms and conditions as it considers necessary or appropriate in furtherance of the purpose of this title. In other words, you're not allowed to do this unless we say it's okay. Right? And this is a common theme that I've been seeing from the Democrats. When I went through President Biden's first executive orders, when he first got into president, he had something where it was an ethics contract that he wanted the people working under him to sign. And the ethics contract was, you're not going to accept any gifts from lobbyists unless you get the okay from the president, right? And what I, commented there was, you're not allowed to receive a bribe unless you split it with the big guy, right? Here, you're not allowed to insider trade unless you go to the commission and you get permission, and the commission gets to do some insider trading, because that's what's going to happen. They're going to be like, why? Just why should we? And then you're going to give them the material information that's non-public, and they're going to use it to further their own wealth, while, allowing you to further your wealth too. And so that's just common theme throughout the Democrats that I'm finding, which it makes me smile. I just love it. I love just seeing right through it. And that's how I feel. You may say I'm arrogant or something like that, that's fine. But, come on. I've seen this too many times where they put in these little exemptions. As long as somebody just okays it. And it's always that. It's always, as long as you get the okay from the top guy, from the big guys, from the people who, want to get a little bit of that, good stuff too, right? And that's just what it is. Affirmative defense is directed trading. The prohibitions of this section shall not apply to any person who acts at the specific direction of or solely for the account of another person whose own securities trading, right? So they're not going to hurt anybody who's like a broker, right? A broker who's you told to do your trades and stuff, and they don't have access to any of that information. But then it comes out that like you had access to the information, you ordered these trades and this stuff, but they're not going to go and prosecute that guy. It makes sense, right? But the main thing to take away from this, but there's also a third part where it's like compliant transactions, and it's like where this the prohibition of the section shall not apply to any transaction that satisfies the requirements of Rule 10b5.1. This is already or any successor regulation. So there's regulation in there. As long as like you do something, you file reports and stuff like that, it's already legal and stuff. But in general, the commission, which is a pretty vague ass term, the commission. I also recall there was a mafia group called the commission or something along that lines. It's just sounds a lot simpler. It's got nothing to do with it. It doesn't make any difference necessarily or anything like that. But I just find it interesting that you're not allowed to inside trade unless you get the okay from the commission. Like, fuck you, Democrats. Just mafia-style rule. Now, I'm sorry, if you're a Democrat and you like Democrats and you hate Republicans, well, come on to Congress.gov. You can still find Republicans putting forward stupid bills. Okay, you can still do it. We still go through them, right? Today, there wasn't too many introduced, right? We like to laugh at stupid Republicans as much as we like to laugh at stupid Democrats, right? Or corrupt Democrats, corrupt Republicans. We laugh at them. Right? We're going to call them out on their crap, okay? In this case, it just happens to be Democrats who are saying, you're not allowed to do something unless you get the okay, right? From us. Very interesting. And then, something that kind of ties into the first bill we went through, House Resolution 397. This is just a resolution. This isn't law or really anything. At least as far as I can tell, it's not law. Expressing the sense of the House of Representatives that critical race theory serves as a prejudicial ideological tool rather than an educational tool and should not be taught in K-12 classrooms as a way to teach students to judge individuals based on sex, race, ethnicity, and national origin. Like, yeah, we shouldn't be judging anybody based on any of that stuff. We can, understand certain things, right? Like, okay, I understand, but I'm not going to, just straight up come out and judge somebody, right? Like, oh, you're from this place, went through this shit, that sucks, this stuff like that, right? But, everybody's got to get over their own bad past or their own bad ancestors' past, we all have to get over it. We all have to forgive and stuff like that and just move on with our lives, or else we don't move on at all, right? But whatever. Let's just see what this guy says. Specing that, blah, blah. Oh, by the way, this is a Republican, right? Representative Burgess Owens, Republican out of Utah. Right. And I'm sure many people have been hearing this whole, critical race theory is just a sensitivity training. I don't know why you got to train people to be sensitive to other people's problems. It's just, we shouldn't do it. Everybody's got problems. Especially if, your problems are problems that you're claiming from your ancestors. Oh, my ancestors had this problem, so I got the problem too. It's just do you? Do you, though? Do you really, though? It's just well, it's just led me to this place. It's yeah, but are you running into the same obstacles, though? Are you, though? Do you, though? I don't need you, do you? Anyway. Expressing the sense... Right, we've already read that. That's just the title. It's a really long title, so I'm not going to read through it again. Whereas, this is just the resolution. Whereas critical race theory seeks to portray the United States not as a united nation of people, families, and communities striving for a common purpose, but rather one of many victimized groups based on sex, race, ethnicity, and national origin. Whereas critical race theory's teachings stand in contrast to the overarching goal of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to prevent discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin in the United States. Whereas William Jacobson, a Cornell University professor, created criticalrace.org to highlight the over 200 universities across the nation with critical race theory programming. Whereas, while present on college and university campuses for decades, critical race theory has increasingly infiltrated our nation's elementary and secondary school classrooms in recent years. Critical race theory serves to resegregate institutions of education and balkanize students into groups by race and ethnicity. Efforts to indoctrinate critical race theory into American school children are designed to eventually transform America by stigmatizing its economic system and create a hatred of all its institutions. Critical race theory founder Derek Bell has stated that most critical race theorists are committed to a program of scholarly resistance, and most hope scholarly resistance will lay the groundwork for wide-scale resistance. Now, what does he mean by resistance there? Well, you gotta ask yourself. Critical race theory serves to reinforce the soft bigotry of low expectations by substituting systemic racism as the determining factor in academic achievement gaps rather than the ongoing failure of policymakers and the education system to provide students of color necessary educational opportunities. He's not lying there. He is not lying there. Right, the education system in this country, like, how's it done for you? The public education system, has it done well for you? Because it didn't do that well for me. I'll tell you, I spent only one semester in a public education school. And in my study hall, I was, I had failed out of my private school. And so I went to the public school of the area, which is a pretty nice public school, I'm not going to lie. Pretty nice area. And while there, I had to take like extended learning courses because I had failed English like first semester and Spanish second semester, and so I had to take Spanish second semester during the first semester while I was taking the English first semester. So I had my study hall was just me sitting down and working on this extended learning Spanish course, right? And where it was literally like I had to write things, I had to record myself saying stuff with like a tape recorder. And I had to send that in. I had to mail that in and get like my stuff back. You know, it was a mail kind of a course thing. But my teacher of my study hall was some asshole who wanted to play guitar the whole time, and everybody else is kind of like fucking around. But I'm over there working, and he's like, "You know what? Today, class, we're going outside and we're singing in the hallway." And I'm like, dude, I have work to do. This is my study hall. This is my time to get my work done. And he's just like, no, you're going to come outside and you're going to sing with the rest of the study hall. And I'm just like, what? So we all standing outside in the hallway. He's playing his guitar, just like, da, 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 and people are like, and I'm sitting there like, just looking at the guy like, this is ridiculous. Like, no, and I've actually got my work, like, in my hands, because I'm just like, screw this, I'm working. Like, I'll come out in the hallway, I'll stand with you guys, I'll even mouth the words, but I'm still gonna work here, okay? Like, that's some BS right there. That's the public education system. And that was a nice one. That was a school that had money, right? Talk about the schools that don't have money, how bad those are, right? Like, and I'm glad I never experienced, right? Critical race theory has manifested itself in various damaging ways in American elementary and secondary schools. The 1619 Project, which puts slavery, not the ideal of equality, at the center of our nation's storyline, has been widely debunked by historians across the ideological spectrum, is nevertheless being taught in 4,500 classrooms across the country. Yeah, it's pretty funny. People don't seem to remember Grant's Scorched Earth campaign, where he moved across the South and just destroyed all the fields, just destroyed every bit of food so that the Confederates couldn't like live off the land while he was going through and just destroying everything, just burning everything. So, you know, it's funny, but like whatever the slaves did make was completely destroyed during the Civil War, particularly in the South. I'm sorry. You know, you can sit there and say you built the country, but like what you built got destroyed. So, sorry, pal. Anyway, slavery ended with the advent of machinery, like agricultural machinery. But still today, I guess we have like prisons on old plantation land. You know, the whole prison system in the United States, you gotta look out for that. And, you know, it's funny how Kamala Harris was this prosecutor who just kind of didn't give a fuck. Anyway, in California, Department of Education Foundation, in partnership with over 30 education organizations and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, developed a Pathway to Equitable Math Instruction toolkit that promotes the concept that white supremacy manifests itself through the focus on finding the right answers, thereby discouraging teachers from requiring students to show their work or consider ways there could be two answers to a problem. Yeah, fuck Bill Gates. I'm glad he's getting divorced. Anyway, in 2017, the Seattle Public School Board directed the Ethnic Studies Task Force to develop an ethnic studies curriculum which defined ethnic studies as a way to counteract systems of oppression, such as patriarchy and capitalism. Of course, patriarchy has got nothing to do with ethnicity, right? It's got everything to do with gender, right? Capitalism is literally just the term we've kind of given to the idea of having money around, right? It's not a barter system anymore. It's a capital system where you just, like, you can't be walking around with all the gold in your pocket. You can't be walking around with your horse ready to trade, right? Like, but whatever. The Madison Metropolitan School District is requiring staff to participate in mandatory 21 hours professional development that claims practices such as teachers leading a classroom, keeping a class on schedule, and the term student are a part of white Western thought and are racist. Students at a Las Vegas charter school were required to take a year-long virtual sociology of change course where assignments required students to reveal their race, gender, sexual orientation, and disabilities, and then determine if oppression or privilege were a part of those identities, allegedly without any accommodations if a student had a conscientious objection to the course. So if a student didn't want to take the course, too bad, you had to take it. Too bad. In October 2020, the San Diego Unified School District, which, you're not you're allowed privacy, right? If people they're demanding to know your disabilities, you do not have to tell them. But that seems to be what happened here. So that's a invasion and violation of privacy for all the students, very very much. So okay, but whatever. Who gives a fuck about the law, right? In October 2020, the San Diego Unified School District Board voted to change discriminatory grading practices and no longer require students to turn in their homework on time in order to be an anti-racist school district. And these are the students they want to put into the STEM field. Like, I'm sorry, but we can only go through so many Apollo 13s, right? While students should learn how to actively engage in civil society, critical race theory often advocates for action civics, which in some school districts has resulted in students being taught how to engage in disruptive protests without as much concern for teaching the fundamentals of how government works and why. According to the Annenberg Public Policy Center at the University of Pennsylvania, just over half of all Americans cannot name all three branches of government, and 76% of 8th grade students scored at or below proficient in civics on the most recent National Assessment of Educational Progress assessment. So yeah, right? They're trying to sit there and act like their failure to provide a decent education system is the result of white supremacy. Just racist institutions, right? Like, how ridiculous is that? It's just shifting the blame. It's just the one big giant shift of the blame here. Oh, it's not our fault that we're incompetent. No, it's racism's fault. Oh man, voters, like, come on, y'all. Like, let's start voting for policies, right? Can we do that? Can we do that? State legislators across the country have introduced bills to prevent schools from teaching that the United States is fundamentally racist or sexist, and that on account of an individual's race or gender, they may be responsible for actions committed in the past. Right? Yeah, the idea that people who, weren't alive back then are responsible for that shit back then is just ridiculous. Right? Not on me. I didn't do anything. Nobody did anything. Everybody's here. Let's, move forward. Let's move on. But, certain people just, don't want to move on. They want to hold a grudge. They want to hold on to the past. And they want to just use it and try to gain something from it. Right? But, I'm sorry. But, I can't feel bad for people that are complaining that they're in the United States. It's the United States. We have people, hundreds of thousands of people, breaking across the border, paying money to criminal organizations to bring them here. Their children getting raped to come here. And you want to bitch about being here. I mean, come on. Like, come on. I just can't. I just can't. It's just like, I'm sorry. But like, you're free to do whatever. You're free to do this stuff, and I don't know what you're complaining about. Like, I get it if you're going to be sitting there like, yo, the school in my district sucks. The texts are terrible. Everything's screwed up. The teachers are terrible. Sports programs are terrible. We got no money for anything. The cafeteria food sucks. All this stuff. You know, I could get that. You got to talk to your representatives in the area, right? You can't sit there and blame, you know, people who are dead for it. Like, oh, well, they did this stuff. Well, okay, what's keeping you from making it better? Right? What's keeping you from improving the education system? Right? Anyway, state legislators across the country, right. On January 19th, 2021, the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights posted a webinar to provide an overview on how racially exclusive practices are prohibited under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. But the Department of Education has since archived the webinar and labeled it as not for reliance. And on January 22nd, 2021, the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights reportedly suspended a finding that an Illinois school district violated Title VI of the Civil Rights Act when it segregated students and staff, directed teachers to treat students differently based on their race, and endorsed racially charged messages. That's, you know, Biden's Department of Education. And they call us racist. They call Republicans racist. I mean, I like really? Like, you know, whatever. Resolved that the House of Representatives condemns racism in all forms and calls on the American people to eliminate racism and defend the civil rights of all people, including within our nation's education system. Calls on the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights and state attorneys generals to assist schools in being compliant with existing civil rights laws and to investigate and enforce the law when appropriate. Supports states and communities' actions to implement policies and practices to protect the rights of parents and guardians to know what their children are being taught. Call on states and communities to support curriculum transparency policies to make elementary and secondary education curriculum materials accessible, including online, to parents, guardians, and the public for review before the use of such materials. You know, honestly, that right there could help solve like a textbook problem. If you just took one good textbook that wasn't all messed up and old and torn and all this stuff and put it on a website, and you gave the students that came to that class a little code to download that onto, you know, something, or to print it off somewhere and put it in a binder, right? Like, ta-da, like, straight up, there you go, a much cheaper textbook. A much cheaper textbook. But I'm sure they've got some kind of deal. You know, we went through an FBI, or I keep saying we. I went through an FBI press release where a Democrat out of, I forget the place, but she was in charge of getting a contract for educational materials, and she didn't disclose her financial ties to the company that she gave the contract to, right? And she's been arrested, and she's been charged, and she's going to jail. Right. Well, I mean, like, legitimately, I could come up with a few ways to make that material a lot cheaper. Right. And give, you know, poor schools all the access to good material that they need. You know, like, paper and ink cost less than textbooks. Right. If you've been to college, you know how much a textbook can cost. And you know how much money you can get back for it. Right? You know how much you can sell it for. And you can get some good money out of it. All right, where are we at? Yeah, recognizes that open enrollment and school choice policies allow students to access the school and thereby the curriculum which the parent or guardian believes is best positioned to educate the student. I'm all for it. School choice. I think that's what he means. Yeah, school choice. Right. I'm all for it. Condemn state and local educational agencies that facilitate or expend resources on education and professional development exercises that focus on ostracizing one individual or group from another. Yeah, that's messed up. Condemns the practice of requiring teachers to receive critical race theory education in order to be certified as a teacher. I was not aware that teachers literally had to receive critical race theory education in order to be certified as a teacher. That's disgusting. Like, get your racist ideologies just out of our schools, please. Urges state and local educational agencies to ensure that students are taught civics education to learn the core tenets of American government, the Constitution, the rule of law, and that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits discrimination by race, color, or national origin. As if anybody needs to know that or be educated. I guess, there are people out there who are being taught something else, right? But, yeah, I guess you need to educate people on this stuff. It's tough, right? You would think, that you're not allowed to discriminate based on this stuff. We have rules for it, enforce them, right? These institutions that are racist, if they're really racist, then they cut their federal funding. They shouldn't be getting federal funding if they're actually racist. If they're just institutionally racist institutions, then cut their federal funding. They shouldn't get any. But yeah, this whole critical race theory coupled with this whole thing, with this, oh my gosh, this idea that they're going to promote the STEM, underrepresented STEM ethnic groups. It's just, you're going to end up with a STEM in this country that, is quite literally useless. If everybody there is more educated on race theory, right, on critical race theory than they are on math, engineering, physics, thermodynamics, all that stuff, material science. Material science was my favorite. The teacher was legit. The teacher was super cool. It was this old guy with really thin, wispy, blonde hair that was really, it was just thinned out. But he was also pretty fat. He was a materials teacher, material science teacher. If I went back to school, material science would be something that I would actually look into studying. However, it's very, very hard. That or chemistry. I really like chemistry. At least I did well. I did well in chemistry in college. So, I didn't do so well in calculus. But, I had the same teacher every time I was taking that class. I failed it 3 times. And my advisor at the nuclear college was just yeah, we'll come up with an excuse to let you take it some more. Because, 3 times was, the max. I made it into the nuclear college, right? You had to get to a certain point in order to move from just the broad university into the specific college of what you're studying, and I made it in. Would I consider studying nuclear engineering again? Yeah. Some of the teachers, some of the professors, I just look like a piece of shit. I just look like one, right? So people just look at me and it's just what's this kid doing in my class? Right, wearing sports shorts, t-shirts, just baggy things, and just baggy hoodies, right? This kid does not belong in nuclear engineering. But I wasn't too bad. I was actually interested in stuff. Right, I still think about it to this day. I still have an experiment. Well, not really an experiment, a study that I kind of want to run. It's all in my head. It won't be for a while until I actually get around to doing it, if I ever get around to doing it. But yeah. That's, what I've got for today. You can subscribe if you want. It would allow me to actually do some streams that would just be for subscribers only. But once again, I don't really have that many followers. So I wouldn't. And I don't have a really set schedule either because my sleep schedule is all over the place. But I'll work on trying to get a set schedule going down and something like that. But I also have little emotes and bits. If you want to mess around with those, let me know if there's a way to preview them before actually I guess paying for them. So you can let me know if they're cool or cute or if they need some work, if they need to be animated, because none of them are animated. Which I'm thinking maybe I do need to get them animated, but the way I built them, it's going to be tough because I kind of made them to where they look pixelated when they're not really all that pixelated. Right? They are low pixel just from the image file, but then I was trying to make it look I was trying to make it look pixelated before the pixel image, before the pixel image. So the way I did that is just gonna make it kind of difficult for me to change it to an animated kind of emote, but you know, I could probably still make some animated emotes. I could probably still do it. But yeah. Alright, just remember, folks, everyone, including white people, are underrepresented in the STEM field. Everyone is. It's not an easy field. It's not one of those fields where you can expect everything to come out like neat cookie cutter dry. You know, you just can't. It's just not that kind of a field. And this is from pewresearch.org. This little table right here. Now this is from a census. This data is from a census. Okay? 73% there, 67% there, 11% there, 12.7% there. So it turns out black community is actually more represented in the STEM field than the white community is. Let's take a look at Asian, 5.4. Asian, 6%. Asians are more represented in the freaking STEM field. So it's just like this whole, you know, underrepresented nonsense is just nonsense. That's what it is. It's just absolute nonsense. We talk about people being underrepresented. You know, it comes down to personal choice, right? Individuals have the freedom to choose this, that, or the other. All right? It's the same thing behind the wage gap myth that they got going. Oh, there's a wage gap. It's like, you know, men and women tend to do different things. You know, it's like, well, you know, on a race basis. Look, I don't know, cultures, like, I can't explain it. I don't know. Like, all I know is that you're not going to get it to where it's all neat, where it all comes out. Like, and then what are you going to do then? You're going to, like, control it in the future? Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, individuals have freedom and rights. And they just seem to not take that into account when going through this. They just like, oh, it's racism. But, you know, I really like the point that this guy makes here, is that, like, you can't blame it all on racism when your education system is shit. You can't. Like, why don't you improve the education system in your area instead? Well, no, it's just racism. Oh, I get it. You want to pocket more money instead of allowing the schools to get it. Okay, I gotcha. You want to pay the bureaucrats in your area a lot more money than they really deserve, right? What is it? There's like apparently a bus driver in San Francisco who, because of the rules that they have over there, drives one route a week, like just does it one time a week. And gets paid over $100,000 to do it. A bus driver. Like, don't get me wrong, I'd like to have that job. I'd like to have that setup. But, you know, something's a little screwy over there. Right? Like, I want to know, like, who's he related to? Right? But yeah, you know what? Quit blaming it on racism, because it's not racism's fault. It's your fault, your policy's fault, your education system's fault. Right? You want minorities in the STEM fields, then, you know, up your game in education. Right? And they seem to not be upping their game in elementary or secondary education. No, instead they're going to put critical race theory in elementary and secondary education. This one over here doesn't aim at elementary or secondary education, like high schools, right? This only aims at colleges. And, you know, like, we can talk about the number of people that, you know, don't even, like, get to college, right? Or don't even graduate high school, right? Like, and if people don't graduate high school, there's no way they're getting into college, right? We can go through that. I don't have the data here. I didn't think of looking that up. But I think that's probably going to be the topic for the next stream on politics. We're going to take a look at high school graduation rates. Yeah. Right. Well, yeah. Hold on, I'm gonna write based on race. Just gotta do it. We gotta look at it the way they want us to look at it. Right? Yeah, how about working on making sure people graduate from high school before, being concerned with, making sure they graduate from a graduate program in engineering. Like, come on, y'all. Like, get your priorities straight. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. I got ads now. Thanks for watching the ads. And if you want to avoid watching ads, you can subscribe. I don't know how to affect the cost of the subscription, though. If I could make it really cheap, I would make it really cheap. If I could make it, I don't know how cheap I can make it, or if I can do anything with it at all. I just don't know how. I've been looking. I don't know how to affect it. But, catch me on the flip side and let me know how. Because, I don't want to make it like, crazy expensive or anything like that. I don't know what Twitch's kind of deal is, to be perfectly honest. But anyway, yeah. Democrats and Republicans, but mostly Democrats. And I don't mean Democrats voters or Republican voters. I'm talking about Democrat politicians and Republican politicians. Get your shit straight. Get your priorities in order. Alright? No way you're going to get people through these colleges if you can't even get them through high school. Peace out, everybody. Have a good night.